Hi, welcome to another episode of Mental Health Mondays. I am AA Ron, but sometimes I'm known as Mr. Burden on my other podcast, the Educators Podcast. And with me, I'm super excited, a good friend of mine, colleague from teaching, but also this is a historic moment. She is the first cross-promotional guest that I've ever had that has already been on the
Wow.
education podcast. Now she's on the Mental Health Mondays podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, third grade rock star teacher, Lindsey Cramer. Hello, Lindsey.
Thank you. Hello.
Thank you so much for doing this. I feel so bad for asking you to do this during your summer vacation, your summer goose fraba. And I'm glad. I think I tore you away from summer learning camp. Is that what's going on right now?
Yep, that is going on. Kids start on the 5th, so a little bit more of a break till then. I just am going in and out of my classroom, setting up, and then I miss them, but
Yes. Oh, yeah. Every teacher knows that balance between you miss the kids, but you also value.
But these past few weeks have been very nice to myself.
Aloha, by the way.
Yes.
As I love that. I love your summer. Is that your summer Airbnb that you're at behind you?
My summer house on my teacher's salary I can afford, clearly.
Exactly. Yeah, well, and teacher's
Not
salary.
just a plain wall that I'm trying to cover up.
Well, it looks great. I love how you have the piano in the back and you get the whole deal. So, teachers' compensation's doing okay. I'm sure a lot of heads of education are looking at this video saying, we got one guy at some island getaway, and we've got this young lady here at some penthouse apartment with a grand piano and whatnot. So I appreciate you jumping onto this podcast because mental health and education are like this, and there's a lot to dive into. I did want to first just ask about, is your summer truly being feeling relaxing, or are you already feeling that anxiety of, August is coming so soon and September is going to be here before you know it?
I would say yes, this year more than last, because we are going back earlier. The kids are starting before Labor Day. So it's more of the angst of we're going to have to almost like babysit them for like a week-ish, because then they're going to go back on break and we're going to start it all over again.
Yeah.
So it's that mindset. And I do SLC. If I didn't do something, I'd lose my mind for 8 weeks being at home. But it's a nice segue. It gives me, I took time to myself for a few weeks. I went out to Chicago to see my sister for a week. That was good.
Nice.
Just decompress, but me being me, I'm already ready to jump back in.
Chicago, that holds a place in my heart. My wife is Chicago born and bred. That's why I call it pop instead of soda, and that's why I have to.
Yeah.
We have our special. Now, did you get any Chicago pizza out there?
I did last time. We didn't this time. We actually didn't go into the city this time. We just kind of, my sister lives outside of the city, so we just kind of relaxed and just took it all in. She was very understanding that I just wanted to decompress. That was why I was there, and just spend quality family time.
Do you think that it's becoming more common? I mean, definitely with teachers, about staycations or vacations where the most fun a teacher does is to veg because you need to do that recharge.
Honestly, the past Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, I just like binge so much Netflix, and then finally, I started going back to on Wednesday. I was like, I can't sit anymore. I was like, I can't. My body's being formed into the couch at this point. I was like, I gotta get up. I gotta do something. So I try to do like at least one thing, try to get out of the house a day now, because I'll just get stuck in a rut, and then it'll be really hard after that to go back to work.
That's really hard. We just bought a new couch, and it has that memory foam that so it fits to you. If you sit there for long enough, it starts to fit to you. So literally, you start to become one with the couch, and that's terrible. That's so dangerous. When that starts to happen. But that's good to get out and get that exercise. I think exercise is important, and that's something I've started back. I'm back on the fat teacher program where I'm I'm doing little by little baby steps.
Mhm.
But I've been working on my health, and you and
Good.
I've talked about
Mhm.
before about the reasons I left the classroom, and some of it was health related. But yeah, there's an incredible amount of stress on teachers, and I think, do you feel like what misconceptions about what teachers have to endure do you feel like are out there in society, or do you think do you think there's more stress on us than ever now, or do you think it's always kind of been like that?
Yes and no. I think it also depends on the teacher and themselves. I mean, we are very caring people when we are with these kids. They're our kids. So,
Mhm.
of course, I'm going to go to bed worrying about them. I'm going to wake up worrying about them. And that just puts so much more stress. And knowing we talked about different family backgrounds of these kids and knowing their personal situations, it really does weigh on us. And I mean, even things that are out of our control. My team and I were talking that like the last 2 weeks of school, we were there, waking up early, staying up late, just thinking about all what ifs that we can't control, but our mama bear instincts just want us to fix everything for them and have everything go perfectly.
Yeah, it's tough because especially when you really start to get to know the kids and you've learned about their backstories. And you and I have talked about on the Educators podcast about one particular student that you had a tremendous impact on. And I think sometimes we forget the why with students, like what's affecting their behavior. And it's when you really, and it's classic Carolyn Ann Tomlinson, where you got to get to know your students in order to teach them. Do you
Mhm.
find like that that's a common thing with not just in teaching, but maybe sometimes we tend to just classify people or label people just based on one interaction?
Yeah, I think it's human instinct that we just
Mhm.
look at someone, whether they look or how they act first off the bat, and we do as humans go either I'm gonna like this person or I don't. I'm gonna like this kid or I don't. And it's kind of sad because you never really get to, unless you put the effort in, you're never really gonna get to know that person. I
Yeah.
mean, just think walking around Walmart, how many judgy eyes you have just being like, oh, that person, like, and
Ooh.
we can't help it as humans. That's just how we are, is
Mhm.
our first thing to do is judge. And it's very hard to get away from that, especially when you have other people putting their influence on you and telling you how you should perceive someone without you making your own judgment first.
Mhm. Absolutely. And that, as a teacher, have you found that to be the case? Like when you get a student and everyone's telling you, oh, you got this student and they're bad. And how do you handle that situation?
My best bet is I throw it out the window. You can talk to me all day long about somebody, about a kid, but and I'm very territorial of the kids I wind up getting. Uh,
Mama bear.
Fall mama bear with these kids. They are my kids. And I go, okay, that's your experience with them. I go, they've had a whole summer to grow. They're still growing. They're still kids. And I also think a lot of it has to do with how we approach the situation. Is if we go with these negative connotations, there's going to be negative outcomes, is the reality of it. But if we
Yeah.
go in with the clean, open slate, we're more likely to have a better relationship and get to them and understand why are they the way that they are and help them from there.
Do you also feel like sometimes we as teachers are in some cases, their only, if not their most significant adult representation or the influence? Like some cases, their parents, so a lot of times, not no fault of the parents. They're busy, they're working, or they're constantly on their own thing. But in some cases, it is the parents' fault. Do you feel like we're there a lot of times as teachers? We're their only source of parental influence?
I believe in some cases, yes. I mean, being heavy military where we are, there are a lot of single parents in general, but we're a husband or a wife or whoever is deployed or sometimes both, and grandma, grandpa's watching them, and they come to you for those 7 to 8 hours a day, and it's a place of security, and they have a schedule, and they know what to expect, and it's like a home. Like I always
Mhm.
taught my kids that our classroom is our home. We need to respect it. And I've had kids at the end of the school year who kids are not even doing SLC go, I want to do summer learning camp with you. And I was like, well, I only could take so many kids, but they feel comfort in it. And that goes up always with relationships, and, you know, they get to see their friends and they get to be themselves. And a lot of them, if they have big families too, you have to understand that, yes, I may have 20 kids in a classroom, but when they go home, they want to hang out with mom or dad, whoever, but if they have 5 or 6 other siblings, they're really going to fight for that attention, and then no fault to their own or their parents, but then the kids might bundle up or feel like they're being a burden, or, you know, get shut down because they're being extra, instead of really knowing what they just want to hang out with you. They just want to love you. And that's really all.
Yeah, that's tremendous. And it's a true testament to you as an educator that they want to spend that time with you. My concern sometimes, and this has been one of those things where it's like you get so many you have so many that it's like remembering to hug all of them kind of thing. And it's like you like, for example, where is the line that you have to meet, where you have to maintain a bit of an arm's length when it comes to your, you know, being there for these kids, because you've got to guard your own sanity. Like you said, you know, I've had students where, like, I'm constantly worried, are they going to have a meal today? Or, you know, I'm constantly worried, like, what kind of day are they going to have based on their morning? Like, and based on their interactions with their parents. And it's always really cool when they'll they'll want to stay or hang out. Or like recently, I actually got a message that I was invited to one of my former students' bouncy house party.
Oh my gosh! I love
that. As honored as I was, I mean, I was very honored. This is a student that I haven't seen since October, but the fact that he thought of me, you know, and thought to invite me is great. But one, I'm not going to go. I mean, it's sad that I have to say that, but it's there. Do you feel like where is that art? Where is the line that you have to draw between where you have to kind of explain to the kids that you aren't their parent, and there are certain things that you have to take for yourself?
Yeah, I mean, I have always been very honest with my students, and I've had a lot of clingy kids in the past few years, but I'm also very real with them. And if I am having a day where I'm anxious or I'm stressed out, and I tell my kids, I say, you know, Miss Cramer, she's not herself today. She has a lot of anxiety, or she did something and she's feeling kind of embarrassed about it. And I make sure I tell them it's not their fault at all, but that I just need my space. So just drawing that line from the bat, and they've known, because my kids like to pile on top of me every morning when they see me. So, and they've kind of, I call them coffee mornings with my kids. And it's literally, if they see a coffee cup out, that means Cramer is not in the mood today. Like, we need to get her time.
I needs her caffeine.
And I never drink coffee, so if it's a big pick me up for me, because I get anxious easily, so I try not to. But kids will write like, she's having a coffee mornings like that, and it's so they know not to cross the line of. They know the boundary of where I'm not going to flip out on them, because they know being like, we all have those times where we just need to step back. And sometimes, you know, then I can drop them off at PE and I come back and they're like, oh, you're happy again. I just need that time to decompress. And I try to also explain to them that I'm not upset with you. I'm upset what happened earlier. It's still affecting me. And I don't want to take it out on you, is what I try to tell them. And I do try to relate it back to their families. I'm like, you know, sometimes a mom or dad, even a sibling or a friend gets upset, and we just need to give them space.
Yeah.
Is the best way. And they've known from day one. So they're very well aware of boundaries. Now, I've had kids ask me for my phone number, and I'm like, absolutely not. That's definitely crossing a boundary. You're come hang out with me after school. And I just always say something like, oh, I need to go take my dog out, or, I gotta go plan for tomorrow. So we have fun things to do. Of just not trying to crush their dream too hard, but.
Yeah, I had my first year teaching. I was invited to every sports or activity or dance thing, and Deb and I would start going, and it was great at first, and especially what it does for the kid. They see their teacher. Oh, this is so cool. But what started happening is, if I had to turn one down for whatever reason, even if it's like a previous obligation, that student now feels like unwanted versus the students that we like. But you went to so and so's hockey game, you went to so and so's thing, and then all of a sudden it's like now there's a riff, and it's like it creates a problem. So I had to do this policy of I can't go to your game because.
Yeah, I had one student almost every day. I'm sure you know who I'm talking about. Invite me to her grandma's house to go swimming with her every day over the summer. Started writing me notes back in like February. Be like, on this day at this time, you will show up and like write me addresses and phone numbers. And I was like, oh, sweetie, no. Like, we cannot do that. It'll be fun. I'm like, no. For you, yes. For me, I'd be very uncomfortable.
Yeah, it would. Yeah, it's a little different. Do you feel like that? Because a lot of times when I was going through training to be a teacher and talking to other teachers, there was always this kind of unwritten axiom: never smile till after winter break, and a lot of things like you got to establish dominance right away. But in my experience with teaching, I think you and I share this that almost has an opposite effect of being an effective teacher. How important is it for student to show your humanity with students, and how do you balance that while still maintaining as authority, but also sharing your human side with students?
Yeah, I mean, I will be fun. My kids know I will be fun me up until May, and they know when May first hits, she's serious. It's just really funny. They knew last year, they knew this year. They go, and if they start with something, go, guys, it's May. And they're really funny about it because, I'll be fun with them during recess and whatever. But when it comes to that strict like math and like reading remediation stuff we have to do, I don't mess around. And they know it. And it was really funny because their second SOL they took was they took math second. And the second they finished math and looked at me, it's going to be fun again, right? And I said, of course it's going to be fun again. I was like, not that I was ever mean, but I was like, well, we can have fun all we want, but there is a time that we have to be serious.
Yeah, work hard, then play hard. Yeah.
So I don't really do that until my May, those 4 weeks in May that these kids probably dread, and parents are listening to this right now. I'm so sorry, but
well, it's business. I mean, it is what it is.
But it paid off, and they were respectful of it, and they understood, and I think they appreciated that more. And I built them up to it. I tell them in like March. I tell them around spring break time that May is a very serious time. I said I'm serious during the school year, but we have a lot more fun. We can be more lenient while May is business. So it's very cute to see how they know and they adapt to, and they're like. But then in a second that testing's over, they're like, yay, more fun.
Back. And it's almost like you can almost use that a little bit and say, hey, listen, the degree of seriousness in May is going to depend on how much hard work you put in before May. So work hard right now, and I'll be I might be less intense in May. Plus, you need to start putting posters up with the Justin Timberlake going, careful, enjoy April now, but it's going to be May.
Yes, honestly, yes. It's really funny how they know how I am in May, and I think I'm being like insanely strict, and they're like, no, you're not. And I'm like, well, in my mind, that's just how I feel. And they're like, no, you're fine. And they're like, it's a little scary sometimes, but you're good. I was like, okay.
What would you say to like because there there seems to be different takes on classroom management, and every teacher's different, by the way, again. And I think that sometimes gets lost in our education system because we want this cure-all. Everybody wants to write a book that's like the solution for every teacher to manage a classroom or to do this strategy. But what do you say to those that say you can't be friendly with you can't, like, fun isn't as important, like there's no room for fun, or there you have to make sure that you're serious so that the kids take it seriously? What do you respond to that?
I would say, have you ever been in a classroom? That would be my first thing. Clearly, you have to love what you do. If you don't do that, and that goes in any job, are you ever going to have fun? Are you ever going to, express yourself and have those relationships that you want? And you do have to set those boundaries of, yes, we can have a lot of fun, but we also have to take it seriously. And it can be hard for some teachers. I mean, I know I'm only just finished my second year and I struggle with it. You have to put out the plan for them, being like, we can have so much fun, but if we get too crazy out of control, there will be consequences.
Yeah.
So, in the beginning, it is very hard to get that. And I think a lot of people don't realize it's going to take work, like anything. It's not going to be, we start at day one, it's perfect by day one. It's constant work from August to June. It never really ends. You just have to go about it the right way and make it fun, but make it serious. And it's hard. They contradict each other, but you have to find that balance.
Yeah, it's like kids crave structure, and not just in the classroom, but in their life. They crave structure, and they're constantly, I think, sometimes testing to see where that structure is. And that happens. Like you get, and I think sometimes people forget, or a lot of people think, oh, that first week of school, you establish your rules, and now the rules are established. Well, you may have said the rules, but you're going to be reteaching those policies and tweaking them all the way until June.
And every break, Thanksgiving, Christmas, spring break, they come back and it's a reset every single time. I'm like, it was a 3-day weekend and we just decided to forget everything we've learned and reteach it again. I'm like, it's fine though.
Oh yeah, I'm in school again. Yeah, it's funny how that happens too. In fact, sometimes it's like I'll have one student go on a trip or a vacation or something. They'll be out a few days and they'll come back and it's like their sleep's messed up. They forgot all the rules. They're kind of like in this different. And I think we have to remember, for us, like a year of our life is a fraction of our life, but to them, to a 10-year-old, 1 year is 1/10 of their life.
Yeah.
So that's 1 week is a much long to them. 1 week is a longer period of time than we feel like it. And I think like with students in general, do you feel like though that they crave that, they do want that structure, they do want that routine, and how important that is for them?
Oh yeah, they have it like down to a T, because I have alarms that go off for kids who have to get pulled because I had inclusion. The nurse's office, and I had a few autistic kids too, and they really relied on structure, and I had to prepare them the days that if we had like an assembly or a spirit day where we're doing something a little different, notified in advance. And I would even tell parents too that they can prep their kids, because they're so used to knowing at this time this happens every day. And even in their small group rotation, I know I'm supposed to do this at this time. If that changes, it's like the world is ending for them. So I didn't realize this. My kids last year, because they weren't inclusion, I didn't realize as much, but this year with inclusion, at least like 5 or 6 of my kids really needed that structure of how my day is going to go. Like, even if they were watching the news and going, wait, what was for lunch again? I need to know so I can think about it.
Yeah.
It was very different than what I was used to.
Yeah, I went from gifted to inclusion, but what's interesting though, I found gifted students share a lot of the same needs. And oftentimes I felt like a lot of the identified gifted students, which we could talk about the concept of gifted, because I feel like
Mhm.
all students are pretty much gifted in some way. But a
Yeah.
lot of the gifted students were in a lot of ways twice exceptional. They needed that structure too. They needed to know, because like they're thinking, like you're right, like they need to remember like what they just got up from a lesson and they're like, wait a minute, what are we having for lunch? Oh, I got to think about, okay,
Yeah.
am I going to have the cheeseburger, or should I, do this, or should I ask for fries? That kind of,
Mm-hmm.
and it's funny, but it's like, to us, we've got so many stresses as an adult, we forget that it's all proportional. A 10-year-old is worried about lunch, is worried about different things than we are, and in some cases, there. But do you feel like today's students are dealing with a lot more than you and I dealt with? And of course, you and I are different generations a little bit too. But I almost feel like there's so much thrown at kids now, maybe just with like with social media or technology and just in the world. Do you feel like there's more thrown at them now, or is it pretty much the same?
I think these kids have a lot more anxiety and stress than I did growing up, you did growing up. I mean, a lot of it has to do with technology. The attention span, it's not there anymore. And that's why you see more kids with ADHD and
Mm-hmm.
anxiety and all this other stuff going on with them, because I have kids that constantly have to look at a clock of knowing when something's happening. Um, it's they don't have like to have them sit there and focus and watch like even if it's like an educational video for like 10 minutes, start tapping on things, start looking around, like they can't do it, and it's nothing to their fault. It's just how they've been raised and being in lockdown for a few years. And as bad as it's saying, it's no fault to parents or anybody, but their education was online. It's so much, the kids can't leave the house. It's so much easier to put them in front of an Xbox or a TV or an
Yeah.
iPad or a Nintendo or whatever they have and say, here, entertain yourself for a few hours. I have to go work. Like they're parents and they're doing what they can at that time, but now we really see it affecting the kids.
Yeah. I just think back to when I was 10 years old, my dad was Navy. My mom didn't only like, she taught for a couple of years while I was a kid, but then she would not teach for a year and then she'd go back. And my child, I'd come off the bus, I'd go inside, I'd get a snack, and then we're outside on our bikes. And it was until the lights came, the cliche, we're out until the lights come on the street lights. And then we're inside, and maybe we'll watch a television show. On the weekends, we had our Saturday morning cartoons. We did have like the afternoon cartoons when we come home, like maybe like G.I. Joe or something. But for the most part, we were outside. We were touching grass. But it's like today's kids, it's like, hey, meet me online, or hey, I'll text you when we get home. Let's play Fortnite, or they're doing TikTok videos, or they're just texting each other. It's a much different thing. I wanted to touch on a couple things too. I do want to talk about just stress on teachers and some strategies there. But one of the things I thought that was really cool and fascinating is when you and I talked about your ADHD, and how did you first figure out that you had ADHD, and how do you manage that as a teacher and just as a person?
Yeah, so I got diagnosed with what they call like adult ADHD, which doesn't come into your life until later on when I was in college. And to no fault on my own without knowing it is, I was almost a straight student all throughout high school. It was very easy for me. I went to college and I just was doing poorly when I first started. I could not focus a study. I couldn't do anything that required like attention. Like I would be studying or doing something, but my mind was in 20 different places.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that was normal until I talked to someone and I went to the doctor and they said, no, that's not like that's. So she diagnosed me with ADHD. Fortunately, I don't have it as badly as some people do. I am able to monitor it without medication. but I do, like, even when I talk to you, my mind's always like somewhere else. And it's interesting because I tend to look like people with ADHD, you know, so like their eyes go off different places. It's not that we're not ignoring people. It's just our mind is also being stretched. So something I really focused on with my self-managing it was making realistic lists, setting goals for my day. When I feel like it coming on hard, my thing to do is to clean. Because it's something I feel like I have control over, even if it's at like 10, 11 o'clock at night and I feel anxious. I'm like, okay, I'll clean this. Or just like little teacher tasks like, oh, this looks fun to laminate, or just trying to get my brain to calm down in the way that I know I can refocus it. So I'm not overly stimulated, because if I am just sitting here in my thoughts and my brain that's bouncing all over the place, I do better when I go and do things than if I just sit here and try to attempt to relax myself. That's my way of dealing with it.
What are some misconceptions people have about ADHD that you think that like, for example, whenever I first heard about ADHD, I just thought of it as a bunch of people bouncing around going, hey, ooh, 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 like
which it can be. We've experienced it with some kids. I think a lot of it is people think that you're all over the place 24/7, and you are, but it's in your mind is the best way I can put it. Is I could be sitting here just like this, perfectly fine, but my brain is thinking about 20, 30 different things that I should be doing. And it's wanting to do everything at the same time. And like trying to control things you can't control because your brain is telling you to do it. So yes, I've had kids. You've seen some of my kids. You've had kids where they are rolling around the floor and whatnot. But I've also learned that it can come from just a focus standpoint too. And that's why for my whole life, I never even thought that I had it, because I was not that person that was like flinging myself everywhere. And I had to be explained that there's different kinds of it. It's not one fits all.
Yeah.
With any diagnosis, everyone's body reacts differently. So mine's very, in my mind, like mental compared to like my physical body, how it reacts.
Yeah, and I've noticed that you have on your keychain, you often have one of those poppets. That, you know, and it's something tactile about that. That's like, how does that work? Does that occupy part of your mind, or does that distract part of that? Or
it's like a calming, and I talk a lot, and I don't know if it's Italian me, but I also talk a lot with my hands, because that's just my way of
hey, you know, but come on, you know.
But it's weird. It's like a calming thing. It's like a count, like just to focus yourself on something. My favorite part is when my kids are using their fidget toys inappropriately, and then I have to take them, and I'm just like standing there playing with them myself. I was like, oh, this is helping me. I have a bunch of like fidget toys in my room too for my kids. It's just like way to like refocus of your brain bouncing everywhere to now be like, okay, this is what I'm doing. It's like a calm down.
Yeah, there's something to it. Like I find, I don't think I have ADHD, but I do often find I'm at my most zen, if you will, if I'm concentrating on two things at once. Like I'll play Minecraft, or I'll do a video game, but also listen to a podcast or listen to an audiobook, or I'll work on a project while listening to something, or I'll, you know, having that, because it's almost like two parts of my brain are both being occupied. And if one of them isn't occupied with something, it's find something to occupy. And that actually distracts. So I don't know if that's a similar feeling or
yeah, I mean, I have to sleep with white noise on every single night, or I cannot fall asleep. I always have to have something, like we have air purifiers, like something always has to be running in the background, because pure silence just freaks me out. It's something just like, I don't like it. I was like, it's just something that I'm listening deep into that, but I'm also focused on something else.
Yeah. I get that. And that's, all right. We're going to take a quick break from solving all of the world's problems to tell you about a good friend of mine and a service she's offering. Are you tired of feeling like your dream financial future is out of reach? Are you struggling with overwhelming debt, trying to pay off your home early, or simply wanting to give more? Well, my good friend Vanessa Rutter Jackson is here to help. An educator and military veteran, Vanessa is here to guide you through the confusion and make your dream financial future a reality. With her certified financial coaching services, she'll help you create a personalized plan that sets you up to win with money. As an educator and a mother of two, Vanessa understands the challenges of scraping by and stretching paychecks. She's been there, and she knows how to navigate the financial landscape to help you thrive. Don't let financial stress hold you back any longer. Take the first step towards financial freedom today with Rutter Jackson Financial Coaching. Reach out to Vanessa today for a free 45-minute consultation at varutter34@gmail.com or go to tinyurl.com/RJMoneyCoach. That's varutter34@gmail.com or tinyurl.com/RJMoneyCoach. Remember, it's never too late to take control of your finances and achieve your dreams. Start your journey to financial freedom with Rutter Jackson Financial Coaching today. All right, now let's get back to solving the world's problems with the most charming host on the interwebs. What are some, there's challenges, but also what are some almost like superpowers that ADHD can give you? Like, what are some positive spins? What does it allow you to do?
It makes you very the way I have it, it makes me very focused and determined to do things. So if I am set on something and I start a task, I might also start 20 other tasks, but then my mind goes, but you need to finish them all. So I guess it's like, if I'm going to clean my kitchen, I start with one section. I'm like, oh, we have to do the whole thing now because that's what we're at. And everything has to be taken out. So it has its pros and its cons. And it's something that you always live with, but it also hits, at least for me personally, it hits me in waves. So, it's always in the back of my mind, but some days are enhanced than others, if that makes sense, or even times of the day. But I think just managing to cope with it and knowing what works for you as a person. Like mine, like I said before, mine is cleaning. I don't know why, but organizing, cleaning, like makes my racing brain calm down. And I could clean for hours on end. It's just what helps me. Some people go for runs, paint, whatever they want to do. You just got to find what works for you. And it's not find the good in it. I want to say, like, find what's going to become a positive out of it. Instead of, when I first found out, I was very focused on the negative of, I'm diagnosed with this issue. And I had to realize that, well, can I take this diagnosis and turn it into something positive? How is this going to help me instead of hinder me? So that's what I worked on.
No, that's cool. It's some like stuff like cleaning or doing a project. You have a tangible final product that sense of accomplishment that you've done. That's really cool. I think a lot of times we talk about neurodivergence and we talk about, I hesitate to even say suffer from ADHD or suffer from this, because it's not really a suffer. It's like a different, I don't even want to say differently abled. It's just a neurodivergence. But if you can harness that, you can really turn it into something powerful. And, and really and I've seen it in action, because I remember teacher work week. I'm trying to set up my room and I'm looking over at Cramer's room, and she's got this whole, oasis of teeth, like the basically, and I don't mean this in a negative, demeaning way. This is positive, but it's like it would make Pinterest jealous. Your room, and it's great. I mean, and it's kid oriented too. It's not like it's, because I think some teachers, let's be honest, I think some teachers, their room is for them, not the kids. It's like, hey, look at me. But like your room is kid minded. It's kid oriented. Everything in your room, you're thinking about, like, and not to say that it's not part of you too. It's things that you like, but you're thinking about the kids, because you'll have the schedule, you'll have all these things for the kids to interact. But I've seen firsthand how you've used that superpower. Like you're light years ahead of me with getting the room together, and I'm still trying to move the desks around, and you've already got the bulletin boards up, and I'm like, hey, I'll pay you to do my bulletin board. I hate bulletin boards.
Yeah.
I paid Gooden Starbucks cards to do my bulletin boards last year.
I remember that was funny. I did some of your outside your room ones last year.
Yes. Did I pay you for that, or was that?
That was a child exchange that you watched someone for me for a bit.
That's right. Hey, I'll watch them for half a day if you.
Yeah.
And that was actually an easy job, because that dude, I think he
was so happy. So.
Like, yeah, it was like, yeah, I think you and I were the two safe places for that guy, plus I had a mutual friend of his, and that was fun. But talking about, go ahead.
Oh, I was just say about my classroom too, with having ADHD, and really, and I even changed my room up a little bit from this year, from last year, is when I was looking up my kids' inclusion and looking up their different diagnoses. Mm-hmm. A lot of things that stimulate the kids you want out of the room.
Yeah.
So I think my team thought I was crazy, because what I did was there was a lot of like red, like cushions and bins. I got rid of all the red, like in my room. To me, that's a color that, like, people like love. I'm like that. I'm thinking inside out here, like anger. Like I don't want that. Like, so we did very like pinks, like blues, like greens, like eucalyptusy pastels.
That's interesting.
So that's how I based my room, is when I was looking through my kids, and I did research on, because some of the stuff I did not really know what it was, and big common calming environment. And Mormon did the same thing last year with her inclusion kids, and she said you don't want to overstimulate them and get distracted. So less is more, and so I think that also really helped them.
I that's part of the reason why I didn't do a lot of anchor charts, because I can't just do a basic anchor chart. I got to make it look fun. I can't help but draw little doodles, like a little Minecraft character or a Pac-Man or something. But like, I remember when I was a kid, it was my art teacher in elementary school that mentioned this to me, about how different colors elicit different emotions, and how like red makes people, and I don't know if it's like red because it's blood, it's like or like the bull with the red thing, anxiety, it makes people anxious or heightened, and yellow, I think some yellows elicit a little bit of that, whereas like a blue is very calming, like the color blue, or those kind of colors are very kind of, okay, we're going to be like this. And I didn't even think about that, because, when you're setting up your classroom, you want it to be kid oriented, but if you've got a lot of overstimulation, that's interesting. This is the first time I've really thought of it that way. And that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. Teachers though, teaching, the profession. How we doing as teachers?
We're getting by. I can put it that way. It is what it is. The ones that are still doing it are doing it for the kids. We're sticking in it for them, whether it's in person, virtual, any way we can help the kids that are doing it. And we've all found different, sorry, my dog just walked in here. Different, boundaries and ways that we can help ourselves mentally. We're doing the most, and the ones that are still sticking in it like us, God bless us.
Yeah. Well, I stepped away, like I said, partly for like physical health, but there was a mental health aspect to it too. And, and I found that, and I think some of the misconception, I constantly want to make sure this is clear to folks that I didn't leave because of the administrator the current administrator that I was working for. In fact, it was the opposite. It's like she seemed like the type that I would want to work for,
I
but
love her. We all love her.
in spite of her,
yeah,
in spite of her, I still had to go because it was like beyond her control. But how important is good leadership to the morale and mental health of the people that work? And that's not just in school, but in any profession. How important is leadership in setting the mental health for its workers?
It can either break or make the people that you work with. That's the reality. You're going to have someone who's doing it because they feel like they have to do it, or someone who's doing it because they care. Is a whole different attitude. And I mean, we talked about this in the other podcast, but just seeing a 180 from our personal team and teachers and everyone's just attitude about going to work and being at work. And yes, you have days where you're like, oh my goodness, will this week ever end? That might be almost every week for some of us, but we say that because, we're tired, but we're not tired of the kids, and we're not tired of what we do. We're not tired of what we love. We just get to any job. You just get tired and you just want off. But I think it makes a world of a difference. It really does.
It's that feeling of support. It's like every job's has stress, and every job has its frustrations. And the stress at teaching, I think you'd agree, the stress at teaching is, it's tough managing kids, managing a class of 25 to 30 kids, even 16 kids. That's 16 different personalities that you've got to constantly do. And when you're a teacher, you're not only the teacher, but you're the mom, the dad, you're the nurse, you're the doctor, you're the psychologist, you're a game show host. You're having to take, I always make this joke, it's like you're having to compete with all, you have to avoid manage all these distractions, manage all these things that pop up. And also you're competing against TikTok, Among Us, Minecraft, Roblox. You're competing for their attention, and you've got to make Jamestown exciting. It's like, it's like you got to do all that stuff. And I think that can really put a lot on a teacher's plate in its own right, but that's the job.
And I will share, I was very thankful. It was 3 or 4 weeks ago. I was, working, and on my watch, I see that one of my pets just passed away. Like, I'm in the middle of teaching, and I really quickly go, oh my gosh. And I just like froze, and my kid just looked at me, and I said, I'll be right back. I went next door, got one of our teachers, and he stood in for me. I told him really quick what happened. I went to the office, and I said, if you need me to stick it out, I will. But I said, I don't think it's going to benefit anybody if I'm here or if they have a sub. And they were awesome. They said within 5 minutes, someone was in my room.
That's awesome.
For the rest of the day. And that was good. I did not cry until when I got to my car, I lost it. But I was but my kids just knew that something was wrong. And they kept going, are you okay? Someone asks you, you're okay. Your instinct is now just to break down crying. But I mean, the fact that no one even questioned it or say, yeah, we're short-staffed, you have to stay. It was, don't worry about it. Go and take care of yourself. And that probably meant more to me than they probably even realized, because I'm sure there are places of work where people go and say, well, nope, we hired you to work. You got to work. These are your hours. Deal with it. And I was so thankful I did not have to deal with that. They were very, take the time off. I mean, I went back the next day because I got anxious thinking about the kids, but that's just me. But I did. I went back and I thanked them, and I said, not a lot of employers would do that, and it just meant a lot to me that they checked on me the next day and everything.
That's so tremendous. It's like, it really, I think a lot of struggling leaders, they don't understand that it's the long game. Like, you might have to provide a sub or or give your teacher or your employee, whatever the case, that mental health. But that, number one, they're not going to be effective on the job if you make them stay. If you say no, you have to stay. And number two, they're that appreciation. Like I think that like good leaders I've worked for, I've busted my tail. I put the overtime in because I value them. I feel supported. I feel valued. I feel like my extra effort's going to be valued. But then when there's leaders I've worked for that I don't feel, number one, I don't feel like they're competent enough to understand or value my work, but also like I don't feel like it's appreciated, and so I'm reluctant to put in those hours. Like and I like there were times where I wanted to do stuff as an extra stuff as a teacher, but I didn't feel like it was going to be worth it. But then you have a good leader that inspires you to do more, to be more productive, I think. Do you agree?
Yeah. Oh, definitely. I noticed this year compared to even last year, and it was just learning from being like a new teacher to starting to be seasoned. I made sure what I was doing was more meaningful and not just doing it, but also realizing that the people around me appreciate what I was doing, which not to bash on last year, but I felt like I went above and beyond. But like besides like you or a few of our teammates, it was just kind of swept under the rug. Now I get, not saying I want compliments, but someone just recognizing and saying, I see what you're doing and it's making an impact is just so much more important. It makes you want to keep doing it too.
I'm going to ask you a question, and I'm going to structure it in a way, but I think this might illustrate what we're talking about. If you had the choice right now to increase your salary by 50% or guarantee to have all the support you need for the next year, guarantee support in everything you ask for, and that includes bulletin board paper. There's no Gestapo on the bulletin board paper. There's nobody sending out emails saying that we're limited on and the copier will work every day. You might even have a room parent that will make things, do copies for you, or add 50% to your salary. Which would you pick?
The dream world, obviously. I mean, money's great, but on a teacher salary is 50% really that much.
All right, 100%.
No, it's hard to say because, selfishly you want to be like, yes, money is great. It will help with bills and everything. But is it worth it for your sanity?
Yeah.
And that's the other thing is you see people with these high paying jobs that just are not happy. And I go, and it's true, money can only buy you so much happiness. Would I love to make more money? 100%. But if it's going to come at a cost of my happiness, and if I'm enjoying waking up every day and doing what I do, then no, I'd rather take less pay, get the support, get everything I need to feel fulfilled than just increasing numbers in my account.
Amen to that. Absolutely. And I'm right there with you. I feel like, I will take the teacher's salary that we had. And if I knew that I was going to have those supports in place versus, and I think sometimes that gets lost in translation with the unions and whatnot. And because it's almost a cliche to say teachers are underpaid, but I think it's more teachers are undervalued. That term doesn't just cover pay. I think it covers everything. A lot of things.
Everything.
Like, I think that there's times where, and again, it's never the messenger. The only exception was maybe that one science person that came to visit us, and Imani. I gotta have Imani on.
That was a fun time.
She's like, oh no, she didn't. But I forget what she said, but it was something, and that was just one of those moments where it was just like, listen, you're just talking to the wrong crew here. Yeah. But I feel like there's times where in meetings or in where we're all sitting around with education degrees, some of us masters, some of us bachelors, but all of us, we put in the work, we know our stuff. And not just that, we earn a degree every year, like we are the hands-on experience. And then we have somebody from downtown, or we have somebody that's not in the room all the time telling us the right way to teach. And I kind of sit there, and first of all, I think, what is the right way to teach? In your opinion, what's the right way to teach?
There's no right way. It's
exactly
you can't write a book on how to teach. It's like they do it on how to be the perfect parent. It's not realistic. It's like writing a book on how to have the best life. It's different to everybody. You can't do that. It's not one fits all.
Exactly. And I feel like sometimes, and this is just in life, not just with teaching, but it's like we want to prescribe an aspirin to every patient in the hospital, and then we expect them all to get better. It's like everybody's different. Everybody's situation is different. I want to ask you, in your opinion, what should be or is the purpose of education?
It's a loaded question.
But maybe I'll probably provide some structure, because I think sometimes the education system, at least in the United States, we get a little bit lost in where our focus is. I think sometimes we're more focused on cost cutting and reducing referrals. But if you had to say where should be the focus on the education system, where should it be?
The focus should be on the kids. Bottom line, so it should be on.
Now, let me clarify, on the kids reaching a certain standard or their growth?
Growth, 100% growth. You cannot label a child with a number, with a percentage, because it's unrealistic. That you can't number anybody anywhere in life of where they should be. They're going to get to where they need to be when they can, if they are able to. That's how I feel in testing and everything. I don't care if you fail or pass on these things. I want to see that you grew and that you tried your hardest. And that's where I think a lot of it gets lost, is we're so focused on the numbers of kids who have reached it. Well, what about the kids that were down here and now they're here? They might be up here, but look at what they have done so far. And the fact that they don't get credit for that, another can of worms to open up.
Whole other can of worms. And it also doesn't account for the kids that naturally hit that standard. How are they getting challenged? If they're a lot of times, like those kids, and I hesitate to say the gifted kids or the wicked smart kids, but it's the kids that naturally reach that standard. What's next for them? How do we make sure that they're growing too? That was one of the fallacies I thought about last year when they were saying, oh, the SOLs are going to be focused on growth. And I was like, well, yeah, but there's a top score. Is that going to be, I don't know. I think you and I feel the same way about testing and how that stresses kids. How do you manage the stress of the SOLs? Because a lot of the stories are when the standardized testing, that's what SOLs are in Virginia Beach schools, for those of you that don't know. In the standardized tests, it's always like, oh, it's this stressful thing and kids are throwing up and people are all upset. How do you manage the kids' stress and your own stress when it comes to the testing time?
So I dealt with test anxiety my whole life, to the point where I would be throwing up and breaking out and all that stuff. And I never want to see a single one of my kids ever go through what I did because of that. And I tell them, as long as you do your best, I don't care. Like, this is for you to show yourself, to prove to yourself what you can do, not to anyone else. And that's the way I preface it to them. I said, you're going to do your hardest, your best. And at the end of the day, it is what it is. But I want you to be proud of the effort you put in. You're not doing this for the school, for your parents, or for whoever. Like, you're doing this test to show yourself what you know. And whether a number says you passed or not, because I know those numbers of my kids and I am extremely proud of them, despite some of the outcomes. That's what I want them to take away from it.
Awesome. One final question for you. For all the, not just teachers, but people out there that are stressing out, and some of us, and those teachers that are on summer vacation, what advice do you have for people to handle the stress and mental health challenges that they're facing right now?
And I struggle with this too, but it's take time for yourself. And that probably can go in any way, shape, or form. But, just do one thing for yourself that makes you happy during the day. It can be the smallest thing, like watching an episode or making pasta. You feel like you need to be on a diet. I don't care. Make that pasta that day. Like that's going to be your highlight. Find your highlight of the day. They always say, find your highs and lows. Just make sure you always find that high in that day to look forward to something, because mental health every day is going to be different. Each hour of the day can be different. It can hit you in waves. It can come when you're least expecting it. But it's hard. I struggle with that, finding that something during the day that's like, I'm doing something for me. Yeah. Because it's easy to feel selfish and say, especially in our profession we need to constantly give. But when we receive, we struggle with that.
I think the Giving Tree by Shel Silverstein is the tree is a teacher. Mm-hmm. Right. And because I've felt like that, where it's like, you've given all, and then now it's like, oh, you want me to do this too? Mm-hmm. But that's and talking about pasta and Italian, yes. Unofficial sponsor of this podcast. They don't know they're a sponsor, but they don't pay us. But unofficial sponsor is Angelo's Italian Ristorante off of General Booth Boulevard. It's behind the Wendy's and the Hooters off of General Booth. Have you been there before?
I have not, but I know exactly because my friend and I like to go to Yama over there.
You got to try Angelo's. There's a sushi place there too that's really good.
Yeah, Yama.
Highly recommend Angelo's. Angelo is the cook. It is Angelo, like the caricature, the guy with the mustache looks like.
Oh my gosh, that is so funny.
He's there and he'll go, "Hey boss, how are you?" And he'll make special. If you ask,
I'll feel at home. I love it.
Oh, and it's legit, because on certain nights there's this back table, and on certain nights some men of the street are there. If you know what I mean.
Yeah.
If they're there, it's authentic. You're also know you're protected.
Always.
Well, Lindsey, this has been tremendous. Thank you so much for taking some time out of your summer to jump on here and talk about mental health. I've been wanting to kind of dive more into the mental health side of things with teaching. And congratulations again on being my first crossover guest. Yay! The multiverse is aligned. And I'm going to cross over a gift for you, Lindsey, for being my first crossover guest. You have a summer jeans. You get to wear jeans all summer long.
Oh, lucky me.
Well, thank you so much. And everybody, thanks for tuning in to Mental Health Mondays. For Lindsey Cramer, I am AA Ron, a.k.a. Mr. Burden. And we'll see you next time. Catch new episodes of Mental Health Mondays every Monday morning at 7 a.m. Start your week off with a smile and some inspiration.